Hi everyone, friends, fellow digital marketers. My name is Matthew Burgess, and I've recorded this screencast video here to walk you through some slides and some screenshots of how I use countdown timers and countdown sequences in campaigns. In particular, I am an Infusionsoft guy primarily, and I use DeadlineFunnel as a preference. There are other platforms and tools like PlusThis that integrate very, very nicely. This particular presentation here is really just about how I use DeadlineFunnel. It's going to be a fairly quick overview with some detail here about the strategy, setup, and integration. Fair warning, this is the geekier, more detailed version of my presentation. I've got a shorter one where I skip over some of the finer details of the technology, feature choices, and so on. If you'd like to see that and you think that fits with your time schedule a little bit more than this detailed deep dive, just check my YouTube channel or, or let me know, and I'd be happy to send it to you. Okay? So just real quick, my name's Matthew Burgess. My company is Creatalytics Digital Marketing. That is me. That's what I looked like lurking around the Frank Kern Inner Circle member event not too long ago, which was awesome. Talk about over-delivering. Frank, thank you very much. Great to meet all of you that I met there. So if you're wondering, Creatalytics, sure, it's a word, it's a process of merging creative thinking and analytical thinking in a cycle, a virtuous cycle, reinforced through a feedback loop. It is how I have approached building systems, building teams, building methodologies and almost ecosystems for developing creative content and then testing it and iterating on it very, very quickly. So for example, real quick, I am testing a landing page or testing copy of an ad. I would inject the system with creative ideas. I would let it run, I would test it, and then try to make sure that I'm making analytical, data-driven marketing decisions in terms of what works, and then feed that back into more creative ideas and so on. It's worked very well for me. And of course, definition number two, anything I say it means because, I made up the word. So steps in this tutorial, I'm going to talk about the campaign strategy with regards to the technology and how to think about it. Initial setup in Infusionsoft, in DeadlineFunnel, and then back in Infusionsoft campaigns, how to actually use the timer in your emails and your email copy and so on. It's a pretty cool process. I think you'll enjoy it. And then seeing what the outcome is, right? Which you may know already what it looks like, but I'm just going to walk you through so that you see how all that setup ends up showing up. Okay. Now, these sections here in yellow are the sections that I am going to go into some detail in the shorter video. I skipped those. So if you'd rather just kind of skip the details there and get the campaign strategy and the outcome, the shorter video is for you. All right, let's move on. So the campaign strategy, you're going to ask, when does the countdown start? In what context? Because this is going to tell us how it's set up. Right, so for an example here, I'll give you a quick overview of a campaign and integration that I did to create a countdown sequence. So in Super Life here, this is my friend Darren O'Lean, and what I did for him is I set up what is essentially a lead magnet that leads into a click sequence. It's a 5-day challenge, right? And in Infusionsoft, it looked kind of like this. So there's 5 days of email, and there's free content. And the free content in this case was recipes, a recipe of a day. And when they click to get or consume any of that content, we're tracking and tagging the behavior that showed interest. And then this interest would qualify them for a countdown sequence. And in the countdown sequence, we're going to be tagging to start the countdown, which will then fire an HTTP post for DeadlineFunnel, which then allows us to create the emails and sell our core product with discounts and timers and bonuses and so on. I'm going to get into some detail on all this. So this all starts with behavioral tagging. This is an email in Infusionsoft Campaign Builder. The links in this email, both the text link and the image button link, are tagged with this particular tag. This tells us that they downloaded this particular resource, a resource for this campaign. And as it fits back into the campaign sequence, when a contact finishes the click sequence and they hit the decision diamond where we're asking, did they click? What we're really looking for is that tag. We're looking for the presence of that tag. So here's a quick overview of the setup in Infusionsoft. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a unique custom field. And then we're going to create a unique tag that will trigger the countdown here at the beginning of the countdown sequence. As a side note, this of course is in addition to the unique tag that we created to track the action or the interest, as we saw on the previous slide. This tag here, as I'll explain, will be to trigger the countdown. And then the last step is we will set up this HTTP post. So diving in a little deeper, it's important that you create a unique field for every countdown timer in DeadlineFunnel. This will be the text field for each contact record that DeadlineFunnel will populate with the text of the expiration date and time, which then you can use merge field. And then the next step is to create a unique tag for each countdown timer that you set up. The campaign, as we saw before, has a countdown sequence. And that sequence begins by applying the trigger tag. Now, these are a couple different tags. One tag that I have for countdown 001, another one for countdown 002. Right? And the campaign, as we saw before, has a countdown sequence, and that sequence begins with applying the trigger tag there. And in Infusionsoft, the sequence in Campaign Builder looks a little bit like this. The first thing that happens in the sequence is the application of the unique tag that we created. And you'll notice here that I have, right behind that tag, I have a 15-minute delay timer after the tag application before the first email goes out. This is because the tag is going to trigger some things that we may need a few minutes for the systems to apply. Now, 15 minutes is probably more than enough time, but it can't hurt. So let's look at what actions this tag then sets in motion. So the next step is to create the HTTP post with the API integration from DeadlineFunnel. Now for me, since I have multiple countdown timers in production, I like to put all the post actions for DeadlineFunnel in one tidy campaign. You can, of course, place each one of these in the campaign associated with the countdown timer as well. It's not a problem. So as we see here, we see processes for two different countdown timers. Right? In the first, countdown 001, it begins when a tag is applied on a contact. And you can see here, this is the unique tag that we created. And here's the sequence, right, which looks like this. Right? And this post is set up with a post URL, but you won't know what your post URL is until you set up the countdown timer. So let's dive into that. So as a preface to this section, let me just say there's a ton of thoughtful detail in the features and the functionality and the usability in DeadlineFunnel. Jack and his team really and clearly thought this through. And I dove in pretty deep, and they were incredibly, incredibly helpful. I was really impressed with the technology and the support they offered. So I'm going to hit on some of the details, and I'm going to skip over others. But have no fear. On their site, there are very helpful videos on nearly every page at every step, going into a much finer level of detail to fill in anything that I've missed here. So the first step that we're going to go through here is how to create a countdown. And then we're going to walk through a couple of the funnel steps and look at email setup and appearance, what the timers will look like in emails and on pages, and settings, some quick summary of some fairly detailed settings that they have in there, and we're going to talk about the API. And actually first, before we get into how to set up your first countdown timer, there's of course, DeadlineFunnel has tracking code for your website. You're going to find it here in their interface. And they're going to give you the tracking code that you're going to need to put on all pages in your funnel. Right? And if you need help getting it on pages, there's lots of help, as you can see right here. How to get it into lead pages and ClickFunnels and WordPress and Samcart. Anywhere else you're going to have it. You want to have that tracking code in there. Okay. So step one, creating a new countdown timer. So the first thing you want to decide is will this be a fixed time, that is a product launch timer, or an evergreen, right? A fixed time is where every prospect has the same fixed deadline. Maybe it's a product launch, maybe it's a flash sale, maybe it's Black Friday, whatnot. Evergreen is where every prospect's deadline is determined by when they enter the funnel and the rules accordingly, right? What we're setting up for this particular kind of campaign where there's a countdown sequence is the evergreen. So then you're going to want to decide how to start the campaign. We're going to use an API trigger, and then we'll integrate it with Infusionsoft. Here, DeadlineFunnel walks you through a number of choices here, which makes this really very straightforward. A number of things to help set this up that are pretty intuitive. Notice on step 3 and step 5, you're being asked about your landing page builder and your email service provider. This is really cool because after you make these choices, DeadlineFunnel will then customize the interface going forward with help tips and so on, as well as integrating the proper field names and such to support these platforms. Step 2, setting up your funnel steps. So you want to add the URLs of any pages in the funnels where you're going to want the timer to be activated. To add a new page, just click on that button. Right? And follow simple directions to add a page. Set it up to show an inline timer. As they've gotten that drop down, this is what will happen. They'll see an inline timer. Don't forget to add the URL of the offer expired page that they'll be redirected to when the countdown has run out. It's offered here as presented here as optional, but what we're doing, it's really critical to do. So then the next step is our email setup. Setting up emails so that they can have the visual countdown timer in the body of the emails. So you have, you'll have an email that looks like this. With a very cool countdown timer, tick-tocking away. So how do we get there? So DeadlineFunnel gives us the image URL for our emails. Right? And back in the email builder, we drop in an image and we choose custom image URL. And then we pop in the URL that DeadlineFunnel gave us. Really easy. So next step. So step 3, next thing we want to do in the email setup is create an expiring link with before and after URLs, right? So in the emails you set up, you have links, of course, right? You'll need one URL that will redirect your users to one of 2 pages, depending on how their countdown timer is going at that particular moment. DeadlineFunnel manages it. So you've given DeadlineFunnel the before and after page URLs, and so Deadline will provide you with an expiring link, and you copy and paste, as it says, this expiring link into your emails. This is the link you use. You never direct them to your landing page, your sales page, whatever it may be. You direct them to this link, and then DeadlineFunnel will manage how to redirect them based on that user's countdown timer. Right? So next, appearance. So this is the appearance of the countdown timers in our emails and on our landing pages and sales pages. You can use inline, floating bars, email timers. This is pretty self-explanatory. You just choose the one that works for your design that you're working with, and if you want, you can choose a pre-made one like you see here. You can customize them and so on. So next up, there's some settings here. So the Settings tab has a number of subtabs. The first is General. You can choose whether you're in live or test mode, some tracking capabilities, and the product you're promoting. Under deadline, you can change back. You can change this timer from evergreen back to fixed if you choose. I have this set up to evergreen, as you can see, for 96 hours from after someone enters the funnel. If I switch it to fixed, now I have some other options that I need to attend to, right? When it will expire, and so on. Under email, I can change my provider. I also set the deadline text format, and as you can see here, there are quite a few choices on how to format what gets written to your custom contact field in Infusionsoft. Now, pick whatever you feel will work with the copy you want to write. There's a lot of options here. And then under the advanced and the code snippets subtabs there's a number of cool features and choices. I'm going to skip over that for right now. DeadlineFunnel, as I said earlier, has a great helper video on this page that gives a lot of detail into that. So the last step, let's just move on here to the API integration. DeadlineFunnel provides the formatted URL that you're going to use back in Infusionsoft in the HTTP post. Right? This right here is the URL that I'm using in Infusionsoft. If you have another provider, right, you can see here that they have a nice list of integrated providers, and this is only a partial screenshot of that. There's a ton more. So if you don't see what you're using here, don't worry, it's probably in there. But they're going to format the URLs according to whatever your provider is to make it super easy to set up with whatever you're using. For example, in my Infusionsoft URL, the URL is populated with the appropriate field names, like contact ID, contact email. And this, of course, is the last item, is the name of the custom text field that we've set up in Infusionsoft and gave to DeadlineFunnel in an earlier step. So what do we do with this URL? Well, back in Infusionsoft, remember this? Yeah, we created the HTTP post campaign. And upon being triggered by the tag set at the start of the countdown sequence, we've got a post sequence, right? And this fires the post, which will start a timer and set the custom field value via the API given to us by DeadlineFunnel. So what's the outcome? How does this all look? Right? We've got emails and email sequences. And the sequences are have emails in them, and then they're spaced out by delay timers, so on and so on and so on, right? Which give us the ability to craft our email copy, right? For example, this one with 24 hours left, right? And then we can add countdown timer expiration merge field from the custom field, right? Which shows it powerfully in the copy we write. It's really awesome. And when people click on these links, the redirects are handled by DeadlineFunnel and take your prospects to your sales page. Right? This is Superlife, Darren O'Lean. This is a core product sales page. The headline and the message in the VSL acknowledge the action they've taken. This action, of course, is whatever we tracked in the click sequence. Now we can speak to mental triggers like commitment and consistency. And the countdown timer tick-tocks its way down. Darren is the superfood hunter who formulated Shakeology for Beachbody, and he's known as the Indiana Jones of superfoods. And of course, if you click on any of those links in the email and it's too late, well, you're going to get redirected. You're going to get redirected to the offer expired page. That's how we set it up for the Superlife campaign. Now, just another example here, one you probably recognize. So this is the countdown timer running on one of Frank's pages, and of course, if it's too late, he is ruthless. The offer has expired. So I hope this has helped and provided some detail to help you figure out how you want to integrate countdown timers in with countdown sequences in the campaigns like Frank sets up and teaches people to set up in his Inner Circle memberships and programs. Again, I'm Matthew. Creatalytics Digital Marketing is who we are. That's how you can get in contact with me if you have any questions about this, if I missed anything, if you'd want yours set up any differently, or if you want some help. setting up your campaigns. We do build it for you campaigns. We drop them into your Infusionsoft app. And if you're not set up on Infusionsoft yet, we can help you get set up and onboarded and save a little money in the onboarding fees and so on with Infusionsoft. We've got a good relationship with them. So again, I hope this has been helpful. I'd love to hear from you. Any feedback you have, any ideas, any questions, please let me know. I'd love to hear about your business and what you're doing with your digital marketing. Take care. All the success.